The flaws and deficits of the prevailing global governance architecture, whose defining features are dysfunctional, non-inclusive, and unfair rules and regulations, are too evident to merit emphasis. U.S. exceptionalism, or Pax Americana, has unleashed malaise that have gravely impaired global progress for almost a century now. Bipolarity, ushered in after the end of the Second World War, and attempts to impose unipolarity in its sequel in the past 30 years have resulted in endless spiral of conflicts and perpetual instability. Opportunities for global progress, meaningful participation between nations and peoples based on inherent commonality of interests and aspirations, social harmony within societies that depend on fair access to and distribution of the national pie have been squandered. This, in spite of mankind's exponential technological progress in the last 2 centuries, a capability which could have changed the quality of life for all humanity if it were seen, indeed as it should, in purely ethical terms, as a common public good. And at this 11th hour, the principal advocates and proponents of hegemony are pushing our global village to the brink of unprecedented disaster. The tendency for unbridled escalation of the war in Ukraine, led by the United States and NATO, is fraught with consequences that are ghastly to contemplate. Yet, the United States and its allies continue to doggedly pursue this perilous path in a desperate attempt to turn back the clock of history and assert what they term as their unassailable global superiority and dominance. Differences of scale aside, the devastating wars incubated by these policies in Africa, the Middle East, and other parts of the world in the past decades have and continue to incur colossal losses. The situation in Niger is only symptomatic. It's symptomatic of modern slavery. Imagine bringing back all the uranium that had been going to Europe to electrify this marginalized continent. Vast literature on and related institutions for conflict resolution and the maintenance of peace aside, costly wars unleashed directly or through proxies find no solutions in the majority of cases and are instead compounded by deliberate subterfuge. Peacekeeping forces, humanitarian assistance, etc., are mere palliatives to project semblance of serious concern. Most of the times, the institutions and conceptual pillars of global governance, the cogent principles enshrined in the UN Charter, are circumvented and supplanted by illegal frameworks and approaches. Grave issues of international peace are not addressed by and referred to legitimate international bodies for adjudication. Alliances and power blocs, coalitions of the willing are the preferred tools in order to breach international law. Illegal and unilateral sanctions, weaponization of US-dominated financial, economic, and judicial institutions, as well as other punitive instruments in their toolbox, are routinely invoked to punish those who do not toe the line. These suffocating and malicious policies are embellished by high-sounding phrases in order to claim the moral high ground. They are also propagated extensively through their wide and subversive media outlets. But for all their efforts, these misguided and reckless policies have and continue to endanger or engender robust and growing popular resistance in all corners of the world. The tiny few aside, the lofty aspirations of humanity as a whole is for a just and fair global order where justice and the rule of law prevail, where nations and peoples forge meaningful and symmetric ties of cooperation and partnership on the basis of respect for national independence and sovereignty, for societies anchored on compassion and social justice. These amorphous movements will require higher coordination in their critical layers. BRICS and other international organizations and platforms that broadly share these values and aspirations must shoulder the responsibility of better articulating and mapping out concrete objectives and strategies. The judicious approach will certainly involve a basket of concrete and consensual instruments that can roll back and sustainably dent the most vicious measures in their toolbox of repression. In this respect, the measures of de-dollarization, already on the offing with varying pace and through different alternative frameworks, could be supplemented by continuous consensus building and joint action in appropriate international forums to prevent conflict. Mechanisms can be worked out to expedite fair and comprehensive resolutions when and if they erupt. Similarly, the opportunities for coordinated and effective action may be explored to rectify systemic weaponization of judicial and other instruments that they have developed for ulterior ends and that are not in consonance with international law and the Charter of the United Nations. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I now call upon Your Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed Ali, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia.
Your Excellency, President Ramaphosa, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, allow me to thank our host, President Ramaphosa, for the kind invitation and hospitality. I would also like to express my profound appreciation to Your Excellency for your able leadership as the current chair of the BRICS, in which you have amplified the collective voice of Africa. This BRICS summit is taking place at a critical moment in time, when often unheard voices in the global arena are striving to be heard. The many crises we have faced as a global community, particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic, have further exposed how cooperation is key for our collective survival. Hence, a growing and inclusive multilateralism is essential to overcome common challenges. A reformed multilateralism entails inclusivity, cooperation, and diversity of voices and interests. By amplifying voices from various corners of the globe, we can collaboratively work for an equitable and peaceful world. In an ever-interdependent world, collectivity is essential to adequately solve global challenges. Transnational problems requires joint solutions. At this crucial time, promoting dialogue and harmony is highly critical for overall peace and prosperity. That's why Ethiopia has always been a champion and a defender of multilateralism. And the BRICS is indeed one key initiative, responding to the repeated calls for a new and inclusive multilateralism. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the name Ethiopia evokes memories of origins and of an ancient and wealthy civilization. Remarkable works of architecture and monuments grace its land. Multiple kingdoms ruled over the dominion thousands of years ago. In this modern history, Ethiopia has remained uncolonized, and it has a long history of diplomacy stretching over 100 years. As a founding member of the League of Nations and the Organization for African Unity, Ethiopia's engagement in the international stage has been quite meaningful and impactful. Ethiopia is Africa's second most populous country, with around 120 million people, a greater majority of which are young and dynamic. This demographic dividend, if harnessed properly, can be a significant asset for cooperation through driving innovation, consumption, and providing a large workforce. Located in the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia also serves as a crucial gateway between Africa, the Middle East, and wider Asia. The efforts we are making in intensive infrastructure development within and across the whole region is a testament to our endeavors toward this regional integration. Our strategic position could provide the BRICS with enhanced connectivity opportunities across these regions. Ethiopia's substantial investment in roads, airlines, clean energy, and telecom infrastructure not only demonstrate our ambition, but also our potential to be a hub of connectivity for the African continent. Our positioning offers a vital link to East Africa's market and has the potential to foster a richer and a more inclusive integration of the global economy. Excellencies, my country has also recorded one of the highest economic growth rates in Africa and has showcased its potential to become one of the continent's largest economies. This growth is backed by a mix of agriculture, manufacturing, and service, demonstrating a diversified and resilient economy. For the past 5 years, Ethiopia has also been in the driver's seat to practical solutions to address climate change. Through our massive Green Legacy tree planting program, the initiative launched in 2019 will be the largest afforestation program in the world when by 2026 we will have planted 50 billion trees in a total of 8 years. Till last week, we have already planted 32 billion seedlings. Over the past 2 years itself, our Green Legacy program has spread to neighboring countries in the home region as we collaboratively work on green diplomacy. Furthermore, Ethiopia has been an active participant in regional and international diplomacy, including its long-standing contribution to UN peacekeeping missions. Therefore, Excellencies, our rich historic past, the breadth and depth of our bilateral ties across the world, as well as being forerunners in the establishment of key global and regional multilateral institutions, not only makes Ethiopia instrumental to BRICS bloc, but a key voice for inclusivity in the global arena. Excellencies, in joining hands with the BRICS, Ethiopia aspires to build BRICS, foster understanding, and work towards a shared future that benefits all. As I reiterate my gratitude to you once again, Mr. President, let me conclude by reaffirming Ethiopia's commitment to further enhancing multilateralism towards inclusivity. I thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I now ask His Excellency President Nana Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful for the opportunity to address the 15th BRICS Summit, in which everyone present here is in agreement about the intensity and scale of the challenges facing our world and the urgent need to address them. It is appropriate that the theme of this 15th Summit has Africa as its focus. And I thank President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa and the South African government and people for the invitation and for the warm hospitality the Ghanaian delegation has enjoyed here in South Africa. For an organization that represents some 30% of global GDP and some 42% of the world's population, the importance of BRICS, comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, to the economic growth and the promotion of progress and prosperity around the world cannot be stressed enough. And I must applaud successive leaders of the BRICS countries for sustaining the relevance of this body. Excellencies, never has there been a time in recent history where malevolent forces have combined in such a manner to bring hardships to the world, especially to those of us in Africa. We are indeed operating in the most difficult of times. The interlocking challenges and the convergence of crises we are faced with pose existential threats that require immediate solidarity and collective action. It is obvious that the world has virtually run out of time to work together in the spirit of multilateralism. If we do not renew our commitments to build, keep, and consolidate peace and democracy all over the world, we would have to brace ourselves to live in a new and more dangerous world today and in the future. The issues of peace, progress, and prosperity in BRICS countries and Africa are deeply intertwined, which presuppose that ensuring the development of Africa should be in our common interest, which will help right the historic injustice of Africa, the richest continent in the world, being as a result of systemic exploitation, the continent with the highest number of the poorest people. Africa, I need reminding you, has 1.3 billion inhabitants, nearly 18% of the world's population, and in 2050 will be 2.5 billion, meaning that 1 out of every 4 persons in the world will be African. Now more than ever, strong partnership between the BRICS nations and Africa, reinforced political dialogue, and expanded cooperation in the fields of economic growth and international security are required. We have to work together to achieve our goals, including a fair, equitable process of energy transition, which recognizes that the entire African continent is responsible for less than 4% of global emissions, and which safeguards the prospects of Africa's development. Excellencies, I urge this meeting to address one issue of importance for us in Africa, and I believe for the world generally. That is the urgent necessity for the reform of the United Nations, especially of the composition and structure of its Security Council. The contemporary world has moved on significantly from the post-1945 world, which gave rise to the birth of the United Nations and the makeup of the Security Council. The world of 2023 is not the world of 1945. The crisis of the global financial institutions and of global governance under the United Nations system, which were created from the rubble of the Second World War, is a deep crisis. It will continue until a fair system is put in place, a system that reflects the new balances, no longer based on who won or lost the Second World War, but on the major contemporary and future balances. I believe strongly that despite its numerous challenges, Africa is on the cusp of building a great new civilization, which will unleash the considerable energies and huge potential of the African peoples, so that we will make our own unique contribution to the growth of world civilization. Together, working with the rest of us on the continent and with our increasingly educated, skilled, dynamic, and growing youthful population, operating under the aegis of the African Continental Free Trade Area, whose Secretariat Ghana has the honor to host, I'm confident a strong partnership with the BRICS nations can help construct a prosperous and self-confident Africa. I'd like to end by extending hearty congratulations to Prime Minister Narendra Modi on India's historic achievement of yesterday. I thank Your Excellencies for your attention.
Thank you, President. I now have the honor of asking Dr. Saidi Ibrahim Raisi, President of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم الحمد لله رب العالمین و صلی الله علی سیدنا و نبینا محمد و آله الطاهرین و صحبه المنتجبین. رئیس جمهور محترم آفریقای جنوبی، در ابتدا لازم می‌دانم از جناب عالی دولت و ملت آفریقای جنوبی به خاطر دعوت از این جانب و میزبانی گرم شما سپاسگزاری نمایم. لازم است از جناب عالی و رؤسای محترم جمهور چین، روسیه، برزیل و نخست وزیر محترم هند به جهت فراهم نمودن این فرصت تشکر کنم و خرسندی خیش را از حضور در جمع همکاران عزیزم از قاره آفریقا و کشورهای دوست بریکس نیز ابراز دارم. بدون تردید تصمیم اعضای بریکس برای گسترش گروه اقدامی قابل تقدیر است که مسیر توسعه جهانی را در بستر عدالت هموار می کند. مطمئناً فواید عضویت جمهوری اسلامی ایران در گروه بریکس تاریخ ساز خواهد شد و فصلی نو و گامی قوی‌تر در جهت عدالت، انصاف، اخلاق و صلح پایدار در صحنه بین‌المللی رقم خواهد زد. جناب آقای رئیس، این سومین بار است که کشور آفریقای جنوبی ریاست بریکس را بر عهده گرفته است. در هر سه نوبت اهتمام آفریقای جنوبی به تقویت همکاری و شراکت اقتصادی در گروه بریکس و قاره آفریقا ستودنی است. قاره آفریقا یکی از سرمایه‌های اصلی جهان جنوب است. تنوع غنی فرهنگی، قومی و زبانی در کنار مناظر زیبای طبیعی و منابع سرشار معدنی این قاره را متمایز کرده است. خوشبختانه وزن سیاسی و اقتصادی قاره آفریقا روز به روز رو به افزایش است و بخش مهمی از آتیه جهان در حال توسعه در این پهنه جغرافیایی در حال رقم خوردن است. من به آقای ماندلا و قهرمانان آفریقا که در مقابل استعمار ایستادگی کردند باید احترام بگذارم و یاد و نام آنها را گرامی بدارم. جمهوری اسلامی ایران از دیرباز یار آفریقا بوده و تقویت همکاری‌های اقتصادی با کشورهای آفریقایی در دستور کار ما قرار داشته است و در سطوح دو جانبه و چند جانبه برنامه‌های ویژه‌ای برای همکاری با کشورهای مختلف آفریقایی داریم. حضار گرامی، سلطه طلبی، بی‌عدالتی، تبعیض و بحران اخلاقی جهان را در وضعیت پیچیده و بغرنجی قرار داده است. ظهور و گسترش مشکلاتی همچون گرسنگی، تغییرات اقلیمی، محدودیت منابع انرژی، عدم دسترسی به امکانات بهداشتی و پزشکی، در کنار ناامنی سایبری و همچنین تهدیدات فرهنگی، ارزشی و هویتی تنها بخشی از این چالش هاست که نیازمند اهتمام همگانی و همگرایی برای تعمیق گفتمان عدالت و پیریزی یک نظام عادلانه و برخاسته از منافع جمعی است. بریکس نماد چنین تغییر و تحولی در مناسبات جهانی است که می‌تواند به حل معضلات جامعه جهانی کمک کند، به ویژه آنکه اعتماد جهانی به اثرگذاری بریکس رو به افزایش است. گسترش بریکس به سایر قدرت‌های جهان جنوب و در حال توسعه این چشمانداز را منسجمتر و جهانیتر خواهد کرد. جمهوری اسلامی ایران همکاری‌های سیاسی و اقتصادی چشمگیری با هر 5 عضو گروه بریکس دارد و در دوره اخیر نیز آشکارا شاهد جهش و تعمیق این همکاری‌ها بوده ایم. همکاری‌های راهبردی مختلف بین ایران و اعضای بریکس از جمله در حوزه‌های ترانزیت، انرژی و تجارت در دستور کار جهانی بریکس از این نگاه حمایت می‌کند. فواید اقتصادی پایداری را برای ملت‌های ما و جهان رقم می‌زند. جمهوری اسلامی ایران به صورت قاطع از تلاش‌های موفق بریکس در راستای دلارزدایی، از روابط اقتصادی میان اعضا و همچنین استفاده از ارزهای ملی و تقویت سازوکارهای بریکس برای پرداخت و تسویه مالی حمایت می‌کند. جمهوری اسلامی ایران از ظرفیت‌های کم نظیری برخوردار است و آمادگی دارد در هر 3 حوزه اصلی فعالیت‌های بریکس، یعنی حوزه‌های سیاسی، امنیتی، اقتصادی، مالی و اجتماعی مشارکت نماید. تعامل حداکثری و تقویت سازوکارهای همکاری چند جانبه به خصوص با کشورهای مستقل در حال توسعه در کانون سیاست خارجی جمهوری اسلامی ایران قرار دارد. در همین راستا به دلیل موقعیت خاص ترانزیتی و با برخورداری از منابع گسترده انرژی و همچنین توان بالای علمی و مهندسی در حوزه‌های متنوع از جمله تولیدات صنعتی، فناوری، نانو و پزشکی، آمادگی خود را برای هر گونه همکاری، اقدام مشترک اقتصادی و سرمایه‌گذاری با کشورها اعلام می‌داریم. حضار محترم، در پایان مایلم اشاره کنم یکی از چالش‌های موجود در جهان جنوب تداوم سیاست‌های نجات پرستانه، ناامنی‌های برآمده از ظلم، اشغالگری، هژمونیسم، تروریسم دولتی بخصوص از سوی رژیم صهیونیستی است که نه تنها مردم فلسطین را از اعمال حق تعیین سرنوشت خود بازداشته، بلکه حق توسعه را نیز از آنها سلب کرده است. جناب آقای رئیس، بار دیگر لازم می‌دانم از جناب عالی و ملت کشور دوست و برادر آفریقای جنوبی به جهت میزبانی در این نشست مهم قدردانی نمایم و از حضار محترم به خاطر توجه آنها صمیمانه تشکر کنم و سلام علیکم و رحمت الله.
Thank you, President. My next speaker is His Excellency Ntsukwane Samuel Matekane, the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Lesotho.
Your Excellency President Ramaphosa, Your Excellencies President of the BRICS nation, Your Excellencies Heads of State and Government present, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm deeply honored to address you on this momentous occasion of the BRICS Africa Outreach and the BRICS Plus Dialogue. On behalf of the people and the government of the Kingdom of Lesotho, I would like to express our gratitude to President Ramaphosa for inviting us to this historic summit and for the foresight to dedicate this session to the Africa Outreach. In the like manner, I wish to applaud the BRICS leadership for striving to create a better world. We pledge our support to them and cooperation in building a stronger and more cohesive South-South cooperation. This platform provides us with a unique opportunity to establish partnerships with the BRICS countries, the private sector and business communities for the growth and development of our African countries and the global South as a whole. Excellencies, today we gather against a backdrop of uncertainty as the world grapples unprecedented multitude of global crises. The prevailing geopolitical tensions, global pandemics, and the far-reaching effects of climate change continue to have a devastating impact on human life, livelihoods, economies, and communities around the world. This is further compounded by soaring food and fuel prices, as well as the unsustainable levels of debt. Tragically, it is the people in the global South who bear the heaviest brunt of all these challenges. Therefore, the urgency of a dialogue among developing countries to promote economic development, peace and prosperity has never been greater. We call for dialogue and negotiation as fundamental tools for achieving economic development and peaceful resolution of conflicts around the world. In this regard, the reform of the UN security is central to the achievement of sustainable peace. We call on the BRICS countries to support the African common position in this regard. In the same token, the reform of the Bretton Woods institution is key to ensuring equitable economic growth. This is an agenda that we must all join hands in pursuing. Excellencies, we commend the rising influence of the BRICS bloc in recent years and believe it can serve as a valuable platform for addressing the key challenges faced by the global South. By fostering stronger relations among developing countries, we can unlock considerable opportunities for trade, investment, and technological development. BRICS countries are among the largest export markets in the world, and their role and influence in global trade cannot be overstated. There are considerable opportunities for BRICS countries to pursue in Africa, including opening up the markets for products from smaller countries, investing in key sectors such as manufacturing, agriculture and agro-processing, services industries, energy, tourism, transport, and general infrastructure in small countries like Lesotho, and extending support to our countries as they strive for industrialization and technological advancement. Excellencies, as we approach the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly, it is evident that many countries lag behind in our collective pursuit of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. To address this situation, Lesotho recently signed the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework 2024-2028, aptly entitled Kalebelo la Ntshege, and loosely translated as fast-paced implementation. This serves as a testament to our resolve to accelerate progress towards achieving the SDGs. In addition, we are actively engaging the youth to explore more innovative approaches to ensure swift yet effective implementation of the UN Agenda 2030 for the benefit of current and future generations. Excellencies, the need for immediate action is crucial when addressing global challenges like climate change. Our ability to confront these challenges relies on our collective unity. In addressing climate change, Lesotho has embarked on an ambitious clean energy initiative. In the current public sector investment program, there are several infrastructure projects that are aimed at addressing the gaps in the energy and transport infrastructure. Lesotho is endowed with natural resources, specifically water and diamonds. Moreover, we have a huge potential for green energy generation, such as hydro, solar and wind power for domestic markets and export into the Southern African power pool. We therefore invite BRICS countries to partner with us and invest in these ventures which offer guaranteed lucrative returns on investment. Allow me also, Excellencies, to inform you that we are planning to convene the Water and Hydrogen Conference and Expo in Maseru, Lesotho from 12 and 13 October 2023. This conference will showcase the steps and action that Lesotho is undertaking towards becoming the world's first sustainable digital hydro nation. We welcome strategic partners with like-minded nations and institutions. We invite all of you to grace this groundbreaking conference with your presence. Further, we recognize the importance of infrastructure as catalyst for promoting economic growth and attracting private investment. Therefore, the development of air transport and road network is equally important. In light of this, the government has prioritized the construction of interconnecting roads that will link Lesotho and certain parts of South Africa with the Port of Durban. Moreover, efforts are being made to enhance and upgrade the international airport. This presents an auspicious opportunity for investment and collaboration with the BRICS countries and the business sector. Excellencies, as I conclude my remarks, allow me to indicate that with the establishment of the new development bank, we anticipate funding opportunities to implement various agreements, such as the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement and China and India Provincial Arrangement. These funding possibilities can facilitate real growth and meaningful participation in regional and global value chains. Even as that happens, we need to place greater emphasis on the three fundamental pillars underpinning BRICS, namely promoting financial and economic development through cooperation and openness, respecting the sovereignty of other countries and pursuing peaceful resolutions to conflicts, and working to ensure justice and representation in the global governance system. With BRICS and Africa in partnership, the better life for all is achievable. I thank you.
Thank you. Somebody has lost their wristwatch. If you have lost your wristwatch, please come to the table or send somebody to come and pick it up. My next speaker will be His Excellency Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, the President of the Republic of Malawi.
Your Excellency, Mr. Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa and Chair of the BRICS. Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, this BRICS dialogue comes at a critical time for us as nations in the global South, a time in which 3 consecutive global crises, namely the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change impacts, and the war in Eastern Europe, have exposed 2 harsh realities we can no longer deny nor find acceptable. First, they have exposed the extreme vulnerability of our countries to external shocks owing to weak infrastructural, food, health, environmental management, governance, educational, and social protection systems that we need to develop to make our economies more resilient. Secondly, they have exposed the global financial and institutional systems' incapacity to respond to our needs speedily and fairly. So now that we know how vulnerable to shocks we are and how unresponsive to our needs the global financial system and multilateral institutions are, what remains is for us to do something about it. And we are more than capable of doing something about it, for not only is there strength in our numbers, because the nations gathered here represent close to half of the human population, but there is also abundance in our resources. For the nations gathered here are the custodians of the bulk of the natural resources the world needs for the creation of the digital and green economies of tomorrow. The place to start is for us to confront the barriers that have denied us a stake in global prosperity in the past. One such barrier is our own failure to build our own institutional and financial systems, systems that can better facilitate the implementation of instruments like the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, and the aspirations of platforms like the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, the Russia-Africa Summit, and the India-Africa Forum Summit, IAFS. A second barrier we must confront is the monopoly that some countries enjoy of multilateral institutions like the UN Security Council, where we must insist that it is no longer acceptable for a handful of countries that claim to love democracy and equality to have the power to undemocratically make decisions about us without us. 5 months ago, as outgoing chairperson of the Least Developed Countries, LDCs, I presided over the launch of the Doha Program of Action for LDCs for 2022 to 2031 in Doha, Qatar, under the auspices of the United Nations. And yet none of the 46 nations that are part of this program have a permanent representation on the UN Security Council, where decisions are made affecting its progress. This is unacceptable. 5 months ago, I led my nation in mourning the loss of over 1,000 Malawians, the displacement of over 500,000, and the destruction of crops and infrastructure that over 2 million depend on, following the devastation caused by Cyclone Freddy. And yet Malawi has no nation to permanently represent its interest on the UN Security Council, where the nations that are the greatest cause of climate change remain unaccountable for meeting their obligations for climate change mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage. That is unacceptable. In the face of these global challenges, Malawi is determined to work with BRICS nations to promote multilateralism and uphold international law in a new and better framework, because Malawi is not satisfied with the post-colonial geopolitical framework that has failed to deliver equitable prosperity for our people. We must reboot the system. We must reboot it now. And we are here to help BRICS nations design the software. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, President. I now call upon His Excellency President Filipe Nyusi, President of the Republic of Mozambique.
Obrigado, caro irmão e bom vizinho, Sua Excelência Cyril Ramaphosa, Presidente da República de África do Sul e Presidente de exercício do BRICS. Senhores Presidentes e chefes de governos das nações de BRICS, Senhores Presidentes e Ministros dos Estados convidados, Excelências, minhas senhoras e meus senhores. Ao iniciar a minha intervenção como Estado convidado a esta Cimeira dos BRICS, quero, em nome da República de Moçambique e em meu próprio, agradecer o honroso convite endereçado por Sua Excelência Cyril Ramaphosa, Presidente da República de África do Sul. Esta participação confere-me a oportunidade de participar nos diálogos BRICS Plus e BRICS Outreach, um fórum que constitui um dos mecanismos importantes de fortalecimento da cooperação internacional e promoção de aceleração do crescimento econômico dos países emergentes e em desenvolvimento. Senhor Presidente, na dinâmica da atualidade, a cooperação multilateral para o desenvolvimento constitui um grande desafio para a esfera das relações entre os Estados na perspectiva de inclusão do Sul global, nos sistemas multilaterais como forma de promover o crescimento econômico. Permitam-me que ressalte alguns aspectos que, a nosso ver, são críticos no contexto atual. Primeiro, aspecto relevante que decorre de recuperação econômica no período pós-Covid-19, apesar de haver indícios de uma trajetória de melhoria na maioria dos países, ainda prevalecem fatores negativos que amortecem a velocidade de crescimento, nomeadamente a persistência da inflação em quase todo o mundo e a alta das taxas de juros nos países credores acarretou o aumento de custos de financiamento para os países africanos. Esta realidade implica o aumento do serviço da dívida, a quebra das reservas externas, com consequência na depreciação cambial. Segundo, aspecto crítico que se relaciona com a transição energética e as mudanças climáticas. Com efeito, o nosso continente tem um contributo insignificante nas emissões do carbono e é habitado por milhões de pessoas que ainda não têm acesso à energia. Ao mesmo tempo, os nossos países são vítimas de ciclones tropicais e secas recorrentes, com impacto na produção agrícola, o emprego para os jovens, a qualidade da vida das pessoas e a deslocação de milhares de pessoas dentro do continente e em relação à Europa. Assim, torna-se premente que se adote uma transição energética justa, que permita a capitalização do potencial econômico dos países africanos com recursos energéticos em desenvolvimento, que indubitavelmente jogam um papel fundamental na segurança energética global das próximas décadas. Terceiro, a industrialização por via da consolidação de cadeias de valor regionais de diversos produtos, tendo por base a edificação de infraestruturas que liguem o continente africano para potenciar a zona do comércio livre continental. Ressalta como importante o processamento de produtos agrícolas e minerais estratégicos nos nossos países, combinando recursos de vários países para ganhos de economias de escala e acesso à energia em condições viáveis, onde Moçambique deverá desempenhar um papel importante face ao potencial da sua matriz energética e localização geográfica estratégica. Senhores presidentes e chefes de Estados dos BRICS, a iniciativa de cooperação dos BRICS com países não BRICS como Moçambique, aliada à sua expansão, configura uma mais-valia para a materialização das iniciativas africanas refletidas na Agenda 2063 para o desenvolvimento de África em consonância com as agendas das comunidades regionais. Estes desenvolvimentos só serão possíveis com a paz e estabilidade. O combate cerrado ao terrorismo, a pirataria marítima no continente africano e no mundo, tendo por base os fóruns multilaterais com participação ativa dos países menos desenvolvidos, em linha com os ditames da lei internacional e sem influências de rivalidades geopolíticas. Por último, gostaria de, mais uma vez, saudar a iniciativa dos BRICS relativas ao novo Banco de Desenvolvimento que deverá reduzir o déficit de infraestruturas no continente africano. Saudamos o fato de privilegiar a componente de financiamento de infraestruturas econômicas e sociais vitais, sendo de destacar a necessidade concreta de construção de estradas e pontes, escolas e hospitais, barragens e outros sistemas de retenção e gestão da água, entre outras. Estas infraestruturas bastante importantes no impulso do progresso econômico, o que poderá criar o bem-estar para os moçambicanos. Senhores presidentes, excelências, ao associar-se a estes diálogos Moçambique, falo com a convicção de que BRICS pode construir mais uma forma de destaque para compartilhar interesses e esforços através de ações concretas, propiciando benefícios mútuos num ambiente de complementaridade e solidariedade que caracteriza o Sul global em diversas questões de interesses estruturantes dos nossos Estados. Muito obrigado pela atenção.
Thank you, President. My next speaker will be, and it is an honor to call upon President Hage Geingob, the President of the Republic of Namibia.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa and host of the 15th BRICS Summit, and other excellencies who are members of BRICS, other heads of state and government, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to express my gratitude and appreciation to President Cyril Ramaphosa for hosting this important BRICS Africa outreach and BRICS Plus dialogue. The attendance of so many African nations today under the BRICS Africa outreach initiative is testimony to the strong desire and commitment of Your Excellencies to the expansion of BRICS through greater African and South-South participation and cooperation in global economic and financial affairs. The historical dominance of the Bretton Woods financial institutions, whose modus operandi is built on low conditionalities and political prescriptions, which has times bordered on disregard for national sovereignty, has increased the appetite among many nations for a counterweight such as BRICS. Hence, BRICS offers that alternative option by assuring like-minded countries an opportunity to participate and do business in an international economic and financial system which is based on universally recognized international principles and values such as non-interference in domestic affairs, mutual respect, and win-win cooperation. In Namibia, we too hold dear these principles as a condition sine qua non to build a shared, peaceful, and prosperous global community in which all countries, big and small, interact as sovereigns on equal footing, without any country being left out or subjected to the forceful imposition of particular value system. The African Union has themed this year the year of the acceleration of the African Continental Free Trade Area implementation. Namibia is at an advanced stage in the development of its green hydrogen industry and the supply of critical raw materials, including lithium, which is needed for the green energy transition as part of our fight against climate change. We invite you to come and invest and assist us in the development of the green energy infrastructure to consolidate regional energy value chains and off-take agreements. We are open for business. In conclusion, I trust that this dialogue will elaborate on some of the crucial modalities of how an expanded BRICS Plus will function in the best interests of all its members. We hope that BRICS will not be divided like United Nations, which has a Security Council for the few of the veto powers and a General Assembly for the majority of member states who don't enjoy the same privilege of a veto. We believe that an important global grouping of nations such as BRICS, which is born from a collective desire of the countries from the South to make the international order more just and equitable and favorable to peace and development for all, will, if that we do that, will go down or break down the barriers of division, confrontation, and conflicts. I wouldn't like, if we are going to have, and I don't know the conditions for membership for others, I wouldn't like to see we're going to have a BRICS, the original members, to be like the United Nations Security Council, and the rest will be others, will be General Assembly members, no veto rights. In that case, we are not adding anything. We are going to have a group of original members who will be the Security Council 5 with veto rights, and we come in, if you come in as BRICS and others. Are you going to be named one by one or just others? We don't have any veto power or say. We must first report to you maybe, and then you approve, and then we can then say we are members. That kind of a situation is not going to be good. So since we are starting a new organization of equals, I'm not saying because Namibia is very small, but I'm saying because Namibia fought for freedom against South Africa, not Cyril South Africa, the other one. And we won. So therefore, I want equality. And I would like to know what are the conditions under which we, the small countries, will be members of the formed BRICS. With these very few remarks, I look forward to further engagement during this dialogue, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, President Gengop. BRICS does believe in equality, and I can assure you there won't be any UN Security Council effect in BRICS, with some countries having a veto power. Our belief in equality and respect is what really defines what BRICS is all about. So be rest assured, your fears must be waylaid. So fear not, my dear President. I now want to call upon His Excellency President Ibrahim Ghali, President of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, to take the floor.
فخامة الرئيس السيد رامابوسا، رئيس جمهورية جنوب أفريقيا، الرئيس الحالي للمنظمة بريكس، أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي، رؤساء الدول والوفود الممثلة لمجموعة البريكس، رفاقي أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي، رؤساء دول ووفود منظمة الاتحاد الإفريقي، ضيوف قمة بريكس إفريقيا الأعزاء، الحضور الكريم، يطيب لي بداية أن أعرب عن جزيل الشكر والتقدير لجنوب إفريقيا، بلد نيلسون مانديلا، حكومة وشعبا برئاسة فخامة السيد الرئيس سيريل رامابوسا.